All right, today we're going to dive into a really profound ethical problem. It's one of the situations with absolutely no easy answers, the kind that forces you to really think about what we owe to each other as human beings. Let's get right into the dilemma. Just try to picture this scene for a second. It's stark, it's real, and it's incredibly human. A single life, just adrift and in serious trouble. And, while for us this is a thought experiment, for so many people this is a terrifying reality. So here it is. This is the question at the very heart of what we're talking about today. If you know about this, if you read about his suffering, does that create some kind of duty for you to act? And if it does, how on earth do you decide what the right thing to do is? To help us navigate these tricky waters, we're going to look at this dilemma through the eyes of four of history's greatest philosophical minds. Think of them as offering us four different moral toolkits for trying to solve this problem.
Look, our gut reactions are super powerful, right? But what philosophy does is it gives us a way to step back, to analyze those gut feelings, and build a more consistent foundation for our ethics. It's really about moving from just reacting to truly reasoning. First up, let's head way back to ancient Greece and talk to Aristotle. Now for him, the answer to a moral problem isn't in some rule book, and it's definitely not in a spreadsheet. No, it's found in the kind of person you choose to be.
Aristotle's whole approach is called virtue ethics, and it basically flips the entire question on its head. See, instead of asking, what's the right thing to do, it asks, what would a virtuous person do? Or maybe even better, what kind of person do I want to become?
So if you're looking at the boy on the raft through Aristotle's eyes, you're not going to start weighing the pros and cons. You'd ask yourself, what does compassion demand right now? What does courage look like here? The act of saving the boy isn't just about him. It's an opportunity for you to practice and build a virtuous character. And that's the crucial part. The action you take literally shapes who you are. Okay, let's jump forward a couple thousand years for a totally different take. We're talking about the 19th century philosopher John Stuart Mill, and he brings a much more modern, almost mathematical way of looking at things. This idea is called utilitarianism, and it's pretty straightforward, really. The only thing that matters is the outcome, the consequence of your action. The most ethical choice is always the one that creates the greatest amount of good for the greatest number of people. The goal is simple: maximize happiness, minimize suffering. So what would Mill do? He'd basically pull out a moral calculator. He'd have to weigh the immense good of saving that one boy's life against all the resources it would take: the time, the money, the risk. And here's the really tough part. He would ask, could those same resources save more lives if we used them somewhere else? What if that money could buy malaria nets that save 10 children? For Mill, the answer isn't obvious at all. It all comes down to the numbers.
Now, if Mill's number crunching feels a little cold to you, then you might be interested in our next philosopher, Immanuel Kant. He offers a completely different, much more rigid system. And for Kant, get this: consequences are irrelevant. This approach is called deontology. Kant's big idea was something he called the categorical imperative. It sounds complicated, but the core idea is pretty simple. You should only act in a way that you would be okay with everyone in the world acting in that same situation. It's about creating universal, unbreakable moral duties. No exceptions. And this is where Kant and Mill just completely clash. For Kant, the intention is everything. You have a duty to help a person in need, period. Why? Because you wouldn't want to live in a world where everyone just ignores people who are suffering. It doesn't matter if it's inefficient, it's your duty. Mill, on the other hand, would look at that and say, whoa, hold on, a good intention that leads to a bad overall result is still a bad moral choice. And just when you think you're getting a handle on all this, here comes Friedrich Nietzsche, ready to basically light a match and toss it on the entire conversation. He doesn't just disagree with the others, he questions the very foundation of the problem itself. So, Nietzsche's huge, radical idea was that all our traditional moral concepts, good and evil, pity and duty, they aren't some cosmic truth. He saw them as human inventions, a slave morality, he called it, created by the weak to hold back the strong, to keep powerful, creative individuals from defining their own values. So Nietzsche would just reject the premise of our question entirely. Obligation? That's a fiction. For him, pity is a destructive emotion that drags you down. The only valid question is, does saving this boy affirm your life? Does it align with your values and your will to create your own meaning? The choice is entirely yours, an expression of your individual power, not a response to some external moral law. Wow. Okay. So, where does that leave us?
We have four brilliant thinkers, and each one offers a completely different way to approach this life or death decision. Let's just put them side by side.
This table really distills it all down, doesn't it? You have Aristotle saying, yes, because it builds character. Kant says, yes, because it's your absolute duty. Mill says, maybe we have to run the numbers first. And Nietzsche just says, it's not a moral question. It's simply a choice you are free to make or not make. And you know, I think this is the real takeaway. Philosophy doesn't just hand you a simple one-size-fits-all answer. What it does is give you these frameworks, these different lenses. They help you understand the hidden assumptions behind your own moral intuitions and give you the tools to think more clearly and consistently about really complex problems.
And so we end right back where we began, with the boy on the raft. But now, you're no longer just looking at him with your gut instinct. You have the compasses of Aristotle, Mill, Kant, and Nietzsche right there in your hands. So the final question, well, that's for you. Which one will you use to find your way?